Hello everyone, welcome to today's Knowledge webinar, Data Visualization with Vectorworks. Data visualization is an extremely powerful Vectorworks technique that allows you to create easy-to-read visuals. This webinar will show you how to create data visualization, and you will see where data visualization is stored, among other things. And basically, you will grasp the full scope of this technique. Today's webinar presenter, our rock star, Jonathan Pickup, is a trained architect, and he is broadcasting from New Zealand, but has been also working abroad in the UK and has over 30 years of experience. He's been writing and producing Vectorworks manuals and customer support for more than 20 years. Check us out, his company, ArchonCAD, which is the premier provider of third-party manuals and training resources for Vectorworks. So now let me show you where you can find Vectorworks in case you need to update, upgrade, or buy a new license. You can find it at Knowledge.com. Knowledge is changing the way designers purchase 3D software, offering more choices, more freedom, best advice, and faster service. I remind you that you can always call us and discuss your option for Vectorworks or other companion software. Now, Jonathan, the stage is all yours.
Let me just take the screen. Sweet.
I can see it. Perfect.
You can see my screen, Barbara?
Yes.
So let's talk about data visualization. So one of the things I quite like about data visualization is the ability to visualize things or visualize information that's attached to objects. So let's start with this internal wall. What you may not know about this internal wall is that it has some information attached to it. So for example, I might have that wall as load bearing. I might want to fire rate that wall. I might want to put some insulation and give it an insulation value. But when I'm not selecting that wall, how can I see the information that I've attached to that wall? Now, in a simple building like this, it might be, it's not complex enough. Maybe you can keep all of that information in your head. I find it's hard to remember all that stuff, particularly if you put this project down and then you come back to it a couple of months later. You try to remember, was that wall insulated? Did I want to? I can't remember. Is it fire rated? And that's part of the challenge. When we get into bigger projects like this one, then it can be hard to know which of those walls need to be sound rated, which ones need to be fire rated, and so on. Now later on I'm going to look at planting because data visualization also relates to plants, and you can assign information to plants that might represent the time of the year that you need to fertilize them, the month you need to prune them. And if you had a large garden or a large project, you could actually, like, for example, I was thinking of a university, you could have all of the planting for an entire master plan, and then you could color each tree separately depending on what month it needed fertilizing or pruning, giving you a maintenance schedule type thing. Anyway, let's get back into my cottage, my little cottage. So what I've got is I've actually had assigned to this object a record format called wall record. And if you have a look at my wall record, you can see I've got this as a load-bearing wall. There's a little tick here for load-bearing. This one here is also load-bearing. This one is not. So this one doesn't have the load-bearing tick on it. This wall might also have some sound rating. It might have an R value to it, so an insulation value. And I can now get all of this information and find out about this particular wall, or I can color these walls independently. Now I've also got here, this is an existing wall. I think this is a proposed wall, and I might also have demolition walls as well. Now obviously I could use classes to do that. So I could use classes to represent demolished, proposed, existing, which is what I used to do in the past. So if we look at my classes, I think I've got some here. I've got demolished walls, so I could turn those on. And certainly I've already used classes to control different components so I can see them easily, which is great. But I can't use classes to do demolished and insulation, or demolished and sound rated, or demolished and load bearing. I can do load bearing. I could color them with classes, but then I lose my ability to know which walls are new and which ones are. So the idea is that data visualization makes a whole lot of this stuff much easier. So I've introduced you to the idea that I've got this wall record. We have the ability up here to have data visualizations. Now I've already got one selected called walls load bearing, and I'm going to delete that. So I'm just managing my data visualizations. I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to start creating that from scratch. And you'll also notice that these are already here in my user folder, making it very quick for me to go and grab them. But I'm going to show you how to make one. So let's go to my current document. I'm going to create a new one. I really want to find out which walls are load bearing. Spell it correctly. Load bearing walls. Okay, so I'm going to look for objects that meet that criteria. So what is my criteria? At the moment, I just want to find absolutely everything. So I want to color the walls. I could, if I want to, say, just look for the type called wall. So it should only find objects that are a wall object, because I want to just look at load bearing walls. I don't have to. I can just say find everything, but I'll just show you can be a bit more specific. So what colors do we want to do? We want to color everything using a record, because I've got a record in this file. Now it could be by some object parameter. It could be using IFC entities, but I'm going to use a record. What record do I want to use? I've got one in my file called wall record. And what do I want? I'm doing load bearing. So let's look at anything that's to do with load bearing. And you'll notice that I've only got two choices for load bearing. Yes or no, true or false. Let's look at false. If it's not a load bearing wall, I want it to, let's put a color in here. Let's give it a solid color. It's not load bearing. I want this to be a specific color. Oh, it's on the other screen. GoToWebinar always does this for me. It always puts it in one particular place. So let's make, we'll make it fill. We'll give it a thin line if it's non-load bearing, and then I'm going to click OK. Now I've forgotten to do something, and you'll notice that just here under the word apply, it's not selected, and that'll mean that it won't actually work. If I click there, it will apply it, and now that will work. So what about true? Let's edit true. So yes, we want to do this. If it's true, we want to make it solid. I'm going to make this red. I just have to go to my other screen for that. Classic Vectorworks color, make a bright red color. Let's make the walls with a thick line around them. Don't forget to apply them. And I could do things like textures. I can do drop shadows. I can change opacity. There's so much stuff I can do here with these attributes. But I just want some simple attributes so that when I'm working, I know the difference between demolished and, the difference between load bearing and non-load bearing walls. And now to me, it's very clear which walls are load bearing. Now this is just a simple little house with hardly anything in it, but those are all my load bearing walls. Now some of those are demolished walls, so let's get rid of those. And now I've got a very clear idea of my building. Now you might notice this wall here hasn't been shown as load bearing. So I'll select it. I know that should be load bearing because my rafters are sitting on that wall. There was a demolished wall through there. The reason I had demolished walls load bearing is because I want to remove that part of the wall there. But I also need to know that it's load bearing so that I could assign or I could replace that area with a beam. I think that little area there should be load bearing as well. So when I come to remove those walls, I go, oh, it's a mental reminder. Oh, that's load bearing, that's load bearing. I better put a beam in there when I remove those walls. So no questions so far, Barbara, by the look of it? It looks like everyone's understanding the concept.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's go ahead and we'll do another one and we'll create a new data visualization. This time we're going to call it sound insulation. Sound insulation. So again, I'm going to use everything. I'm going to use a record. I'm going to use the wall record again. And this time I'm looking for sound rating. So I've only got 2 sound ratings. There's one which is STC 57. So we're going to edit that one. We're going to apply the attributes. If you tick this first, it's a good reminder to do it. It's at the top of the screen so you can sort of work methodically. And if you tick it, you won't forget. Quite often when I'm doing these presentations, you'll see I forget to do it. It's always a bad look. Let's give these a different color. We'll make them blue for some reason, and we'll change the opacity. We'll make them just a little bit semi-opaque. Okay, and okay, let's try that one. No, which walls are sound rated? And I can easily jump between sound rated and load bearing. Now I think you can do both at once, but every time I've tried it, I either get one or the other on top, and I don't be able to see them both together. I don't know if it's just me or whether there's a stacking order I've gotten wrong, something like that. But you can see how much more easier it is now to visualize what we're doing, because now I know those walls are sound rated. Well, there's a bathroom there. Maybe that wall there should also be sound rated. 57. And so now these are the 2 bedrooms. Now I know that we're going to put some sound rating around those ones so that they'll be nice and quiet. This is a bathroom. You may want to put sound rating there as well. And so it just helps you to visualize what's going on. If we look at a larger project, like this one, we don't know which walls are sound rated. We don't know, and for me, it's difficult to remember. I think these used to be rooms for voice or for singing, and so they should really be sound rated. But are they? So in this current document, I can go to sound rated. You can see all the walls that are sound rated. I can go to load bearing. I can see which walls are load bearing. Now I've used the same color for sound and for load bearing, which is probably a bad idea. So if I go back and manage my data visualizations, let's go to sound rating. We'll edit that one. 57 is that color. Let's choose a different color. Let's make it green, for example. So if I go back now and I choose sound rating, those walls need to be insulated. So it's a great way of looking at your information. I've got another one here. So this is a portion of my capital city. It's just the CBD, the Central Business District of my capital city. And I've gotten this information from the local council. And so these buildings have actually got a building footprints record assigned, and this comes directly from the GIS information. We can see their feature as a building, that's the source that they got it from. There's some sort of ID for that. There's also, I've added the age of the building, and someone's also added an elevation to that. So you could use these elevations, the feature code, and the age to create a series of reports. I've set these up in viewports, I think. Let's have a look at my viewports. There we are. Now I've also assigned earthquake to that information. So if I go back to my design layer, building footprints. So this particular building here also has an earthquake zone assigned to it. Its earthquake zone is white, meaning it's okay. This one is red, meaning that it's not okay. And I found out the other day this one here should also be red. Turns out that building needs substantial earthquake strengthening. So how do we visualize these things? Well, we could create a zone that does that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manage these things. I'm going to delete my earthquake zones. And I think the risk zone is also the same, so I'll delete that as well. And let's create a new one. So here we're going to go earthquake zone. Earthquake zone. All objects, we're looking for a record, and the record is called zone. And green is going to be, don't forget, apply that first, a solid fill, and it's going to be green. Red is going to be a red color. Color red. Don't forget, I'm just getting these colors from my color palette on the other screen. Don't know why, but go to webinar, always makes it stick onto my other screen. And white we can make that original fill, we can make it solid white. Solid white. We might want to change the line weight around our red objects, so we could make that much heavier so they stand out, they're easy to see. And okay, so we've done an earthquake zone. So if I choose current document, earthquake zone, you can see now that my building's all been colored. Now this is non-destructive. What do I mean by that? It means that it doesn't physically change the color of these objects. It's just temporary. Which means that if I go back to saying no data visualization, you can see they'll go back to the way they were. Now I can choose other things like the date they were constructed or the age of the building. And you can see some of them, a lot of them are the same age. There's a few that are different. Or I could choose the building height. Now I can see which buildings are tall and which ones are not. The tall ones are the ones that are the darker colored ones. So it does give us, I just think that these are really powerful, and it allows us to report information in a really graphic way that makes it easy for us to see. So let's say, for example, that I have, let's do this earthquake zone. I don't think I've done this, saved this to my user folder yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manage my data visualizations. I'm going to choose my earthquake zone, and I'm going to export it. Now, exporting this will allow me to save it into my library, into my user folder, and I can use that on any project. Yep, and it's done. And there's another one there, I think, which is not in my user folder, which is building height, I think. Yeah, building height's not in there. So let's go building height, we'll export that one as well. So let's go back. Is building age in there? No, let's export the building age one. I'll export that as well. So I'm going to remove all of these from, so delete that, yes. So now I'm going to remove them from my current project, delete. So let's say, for example, I wanted to create that sort of information, but it's not here at the moment. And I'm just going to try doing this on my sheet layer. So here are a couple of little snapshot drawings, earthquake zones, building type, building age. The building age, I'm just going to get rid of all of those bits that are there. Cool. So we can either use data visualization in design layers, or we can use data visualization in viewports. So if I choose this earthquake zone here, I've labeled earthquake zones. I want to show what my buildings look like with their earthquake zone. So let's go to my object info palette. I'll go to my shape. I'm going to find my data visualization. It's just here. I click there and I say, oh, my current document has nothing. But wait a minute, in my user folder, I've got the earthquake zone. Now I've got a little import dialog box that's come up over here. Do I want to preserve the folder hierarchy? Yep, please, let's do that. And you'll now notice that I've got my data visualization, which wasn't in this file. I brought it from my library. It's now here. It's now got the settings that I want. But the really cool trick, I reckon, is that it puts this little key in for you. This key, I've just entered my viewport annotation. I can change the length of that. I can change the start of those, and it will keep these up to date. So if I make a change, let's go back to my data visualizations. I'll go back to my design layer. I can, let's say, for example, I don't want to have the white. Let's go back to here. Let's manage or edit my data visualization. Let's turn off white. And you'll notice that my little key disappeared as well. So I think these are really cool. It does a whole lot of stuff for you. You know, it sets up the key once you've thought about what you want to represent. So let's do that again. I want to put in the building age. And there it is. Now, I don't know why it didn't put my key in for this time. It was there before. I don't know if I've mangled it or something. So, but normally it puts in your key for you. And let's put in the building height. And there's my building heights. So you can see it's really flexible in terms of being able to create these plans. I've always thought the data visualization was a great way of representing a lot of information on an area really quickly. I know the place where I got this information from used to spend months doing mapping the central business district or the entire city by doing things like showing the building heights, showing the building ages, showing whether there are restaurants or commercial or industrial or residential areas. It would be so much quicker if they just used data visualization. Now I do see a question, Barbara, so I better just check to see what the question is. I don't want to go too far. The data visualization is already set up in Vectorworks that can be imported into a new file. I don't know. I didn't see any because when I went to import them, if we go back to my design layer, building footprints, when I went back here, none of these in my user folder were there already. I'm sure that Vectorworks will have some, but I don't recall them being here in Vectorworks. Now, I don't think they're a resource, so data visualizations don't show up here in the resource manager. If we go back to asset database, or this one here, if we go back to that one and have a look and we look at all resources, I don't think data visualizations show up as a type of resource. We've got that information. So wait a minute, maybe that's the resource there. What happens when we open that? Oh, interesting. It's like a saved view. Maybe I created a saved view. Did I? No, it's not a saved view. So Lee, it looks to me like, although we don't get that information, these are little scripts that run. It's a little select all script. But that's, I don't know why, but that's only in the earthquake zone. That's not anywhere else. So even though I've imported the other ones, they're not there, which makes me think that they aren't an object like a resource that you can import, but you can save them as a data visualization, and you can access them from here, from this little data visualization button. You can manage them, you can import them, and you saw how I did it with viewports. So I don't know whether they come, I made my own, if that helps. So someone would like to know whether I can use markers instead of colors. What do you mean by markers instead of colors? Do you want me to put oh, it's okay. So we've got a couple of questions here. We're going to try some of these out. So Ramon, the data did come from a government database, so that was a city database. So the city has all this information. They were very kind and gave me some of this information. So a lot of the things like the heights, the building height, the name of the ID of the project, all that stuff came with it. And so some councils or some governments will give you the GIS information, the graphic informations systems that they use. They have a lot of information, so quite often they'll know the street address, they'll know the rates that they pay, they'll know how much tax the people pay on the property, or property tax. So a lot of that stuff people will know or will be available, and so you can perhaps use some of that. So Lee, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but let's have a look. Call out versus colors. Okay. I don't think you can. I'll try it, but let's have a look. Let's go to manage my data visualizations. Let's do the earthquake zone. Let's edit that. So let's have a look at my attributes. So you're applying attributes to an object, so you can change the color, the pattern, the hatch, the tile, the gradient, the image, the fill. You can do that kind of stuff, or you can do the pen, but there's nothing there that allows you to assign a call out to that object instead of a color. I hope that answers your questions. So you can't use markers instead of colors. Barbara, if it's all right, I'll just hide these questions that I've answered.
Okay.
Can you go over how ranges work for data visualization, say buildings? Oh, good call. I haven't thought about that. And you should be able to use visualization for wall finishes and elevation based on textures. I don't have an example to show you, so I don't know if I can do that. But I think I can do the range. I can show you the range. So let's have a look at building height. So David, this one is ranges for data visualizations. So each of my buildings has a elevation information, which actually isn't the building height, it's the elevation of the top of the building above sea level. So I've cheated a wee bit because the site slopes all over the place. So the elevation of this is 45 meters above sea level. The elevation of this building is 52, and we've got the next one here, 11, and so on. So let's look at our data visualization. Manage data visualizations, building height. Now I didn't show you this one, but this one's already got ranges set in. So let's go to here. We'll start with this one and we'll edit that one. So this is using a attribute range. So should we, so the first of all, the tick box here, do we want to do it by values or by ranges? So that's the first thing, David, you need to make sure that you're not, because at the moment, it's found every building or every object and every individual height. Now you'll notice that most of these look like they're less than 20 meters high. And there's only a few that are above 50, for example. So let's do it by range. We'll get rid of that one. And we'll get rid of that one. And we'll get rid of that one. And we'll get rid of that one. So the first one I want to do is going to go from 0 to a value of, say, 6 meters. And what color do we want that to have? Now I used solid colors. I could use hatches, I could use patterns, I could use a gradient, tiles. I've just used a solid color, and I'm just going to use standard Vectorworks colors, and I'm going to make it slightly gray. There we are, without changing the line weight very much. I don't want it to make it too different. Okay, so between 0 and 6, we've got that much. Let's add the next one. So the value, I think if you use the value of 6, it gets a little confused. So it's 6.001. In other words, 6.01 meters. These are meters, my sizes. And the upper boundary is, we'll make this 8, shall we? Make it 10. I don't want to do too many. We'll make it 10%. And then the next one we'll do between, that was 10.001 and, yeah, and 15 meters. And we'll make that color slightly darker again. And then we'll do the next one, and this is 15.001 to 20. And then I'll make this slightly darker again. So each one's getting slightly darker. And then we're going to, should we see what we got so far? So those are the only buildings I've got so far. Let's edit that again. And now I can add some more. So this one is going to be a value of 20.001, and it's going to go to a value of 30. And it's a solid color. And now I've forgotten where I got up to, so I'd have to go back and check to see which ones I got up to. I'm going to make it that, I've made it 25%, I think. Check that one. Yeah, 20, oh, good, I guessed correctly. And let's add another one. So this is 30.001 to 40. and it's the next one, it's darker. And we'll do another one which will be, what was it, 40, so this is 40 to 50, and make that slightly darker. So I just use, so what I've done is I've chosen a color where I can, like gray is a nice one where you can gradually make it gray as it goes along. And you can see now it's starting to get a little bit more color of those things. If you wanted to change it and make it completely different colors to make it easier to read, then that can be done as well. So David, did that answer your question about doing the data visualization, showing the range? The only thing I think to be careful of the range, don't have two numbers that are the same. And the other thing I forgot, I don't know if anyone noticed, but when I get to the data visualization, maybe this one here, one of them you'll need to go to infinity, and then it'll pick up all the other ones. Otherwise you'll have to go through each individual. How about auto color? Is there an auto color option? Let's just go back. Don't think I edit. Oh, auto color. Oh, let's try that then. Can I select all of them? There's auto color. Interesting. Let's edit that one. Let's edit that. Let's do that one to 40 to 50. And let's do another one, which is apply values. This is 50.001 to 60. I'll go, okay, I'll auto color this one as well. So add another one, which will be 60 to 70. Okay, and the last one we'll do 70 to infinity. We'll auto color those again. And okay. I just preferred my, instead of the auto color, I preferred my other choices. Totally up to you. On color settings, auto color, start color. Oh, maybe I can do it this way. Start color, end color. Okay, let's auto color those. Oh, how about that? So, David, I was able to auto color them. I was able to use my choice of the colors. You notice it goes from almost from white up to black, and Vectorworks has calculated which ones to put in the middle. That's quite fun, this auto setting. So I could also color the pen from black to black, so it would auto color the pen as well. Okay, let's auto color. Oh, no, I don't want to auto color the pen. I've done auto color the pen. Let's see if I can do that again. Go from black to black. No, it's giving me my funny pen color anyway. So I've obviously mucked that up. Go okay, and now you can see the range of my building heights. The darker ones are the taller, the lightest ones are the least high. But now I've got funny colors going around them all. So I think I've done that, David, for that. I can't demonstrate wall finishes and elevations, but I think you could. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. Now, someone thinks that, Jim, sorry, it looked like I had to delete those in order to import them into my viewports. That's not the way that I had to do it. I was trying to show two things at once, Jim. I was trying to show that if you don't have those viewports in your file, you can easily import them. You didn't have to do that extra step. I only did that extra step so that I could show that you could open this file again and import those back in. That was all. You don't have to do that. Yeah, we got that. Okay. So Jim, you've never used this feature before, but I think it's really powerful. Well, let's go to the the asset database. I think it's powerful when the buildings get bigger. Now, I think that in this small building, you can probably remember which one's a sound rated, or maybe it's just totally obvious which ones should be sound rated because it's the bedroom walls. So it's not a biggie for this particular building. But I think when you get to this size, it can be harder to remember which ones are load bearing and which ones are not, because it might depend on the structure of the building, and it might be that you don't keep the structure in your mind the whole time. So if we go back to load bearing, you'll notice that I've got load bearing walls. Some are colored, some are not. And that's because not all walls have got the correct assignment to them. Now, I find that these walls down here are a little bit hard to read because they're not solid red. They've actually got a slight transparency to them. And when I zoom out, I find it's slightly harder to read because these walls here are so thin. And maybe what you do is you make them, you make all the walls that are not load bearing clear, and you make these ones a solid. You should be able to do that as well. Let's go back to editing my load bearing walls. So if I choose it's not load bearing, I can give it no fill. And you can see now it's much easier to read the walls, just the red ones stand out. And if I edit that again, edit data visualization, I gave it a bit of transparency. Let's get rid of that and let's make these walls heavier. Now it's real obvious which ones are load bearing because they just stand out so well. So we could have load bearing walls, we could have sound rating. I can't remember what table, oh, table color. Yeah, because all my tables in here have got colors. I colored each one. This is an asset database that records the sort of objects. It records the type of object it is, whether it's a desk, whether it's a drafting table, whether it's a chair, a table, and I've assigned colors to them all. So I should be able to go color table. And so for an asset database, we've got some black chairs and some gray tables, some white tables. And now we can see, it's pretty crude, but we can kind of see the layout of the office space more easily. Okay, so I'm just getting rid of some of these questions, Barbara, so I can see them. Is visualization 2D use only? Let's go back to this one, I think. Let's turn off my data visualization. Okay, so there was a technique in Vectorworks that some people used to use, and it was to do with records, and it was called modify by record. And we used to be able to use modify by record to change the thing. So we used to be able to use color values, color ranges, color gradients, based on something, the color, the information assigned. Let's do elevation. Let's do extrude. We're in meters, so we do extrude. I think, yep, the file's in meters. So this was always a trick you could do with modify by record, which was to extrude those objects based on the data for their elevation. So it was a really quick way to make a city. I don't know if anyone's ever done this before, but I always thought it was a really quick trick. It looks pretty impressive, actually, I think. So there we are. So there's our city. We could walk amongst it. We've got the building heights. So it gives us a really quick view of the city. We could put a heliodon on there. We could put a site model. I had the contours for this as well. So although I don't have the start height of the buildings, we could give it a really quick city visualization if we wanted. How does that help? Well, why don't we then do earthquake zone? Now, if I do earthquake zone, it now colors all of my 3D objects according to their earthquake zone. And so now I can fly around them and I know which buildings are susceptible to earthquakes and which ones are not. The red ones obviously are the ones that are susceptible to earthquakes. The green ones are earthquake, meet the building code, I should say. And the white ones, well, they're not dangerous, but they don't meet the building code. So does that answer your question? Is it for 2D only? I think you can use it for 3D. I think it's pretty quick. You could actually walk, I could actually walk along the city, which would be kind of fun. You could make, oh, that's another webinar, I suppose. Barbara, I was going to make I was going to do a walkthrough down here, turn the corner and walk along. And then we go model, what's it called? Create animation, create walkthrough from, make path from selection. It's an animation path. We can activate the camera view. Where's my camera view gone? I've lost my camera view. And then I was going to walk through it. But let's get back out of there. So does that answer your question? I think it does. We can use it for 3D if we want. I think this is really powerful. Barbara, that's probably all I've got. There are no other questions, but I think that shows most of the stuff that I wanted to cover. It's a topic that's been around. Data visualization has been around. Oh, there's one more thing, Barbara, I want to do.
Yeah, it's a great topic and a great way to get information at a glance.
I think it is. So the other thing I haven't done, Barbara, is we need to know which of these trees we need to prune at different times of the year. Now I've already got one in my user folder, so I should be able to go, month to fertilize. Let's turn that on. Now you can, I don't know if you can see, Barbara, there's a subtle difference between the colors.
Yeah.
Maybe that's too subtle.
Yeah, it's a little subtle, but I can see it.
Can we auto color those? Color settings. Oh, I should have left the auto color the way it was probably. Classic Vectorworks colors. Let's go from there. I don't know how it chooses these to there. I wonder what that does with auto color. Oh, it's made them all that color. Let's make it green. Oh, okay. That should be a bit different.
All right. I can see it now.
So some need pruning in some months, some need pruning in other months. And if you imagine you had a whole city or a whole university of that, it would be so much easier, particularly if I make a viewport out of that. So let's have data visualization none. Let's make a viewport. Create viewport. Now I've added to my right click because I do so many create viewports. Let's create a new sheet layer. Yeah, so that one there. Let's go OK. And let's add our data visualization, which was month to fertilize. Now, not only does it give you the colors on the viewport, but you've now got the little key down the bottom here as well, which is really cool. Which I thought was a lot of fun, Barbara. And let's do this one over here. I think I've got a month to prune as well. Is there a month to prune? I've got month to fertilize only. But I can do the same thing with month to prune so that you can generate a map showing which trees need pruning in which months. Someone's asking about the elevational view. I don't understand. I don't know why I would want to use it for elevations, for showing material finishes on exterior elevations, because I might just show them with textures anyway. But we could perhaps create a visual, and you can see now my walls, my load-bearing walls are there. So let's create I don't think I've got any materials on the side. I'd have to add the materials. Let's screen plane, cool. Let's make a viewport from that. Let's put that on a new sheet layer. And okay, where's my sheet layer control? Over there. Okay, okay. And let's update that. And we'll do data visualization. load bearing. Date. So I guess I could do materials. There are no materials on that wall because of the way that I made it. But let's see if I can do something. Data, that object and that object. We'll make them weatherboard. Make them weatherboard walls. So that's now I'm not actually using actual Vectorworks materials because I don't know how to use the data visualization to find materials. I could use, oh, there's material. And you'll see that I've got no materials here, but I guess I could find that and use material if I knew what the material of that wall was. Shape, it's a wall, it's using a wall style. I'll edit my style, my cladding. I'll edit my cladding and see if I can add cladding. I'll see if I can add a material. Siding. What are UK materials? Have they got weatherboards? No. I'll choose brick. So let's add brick to that. So it's now got brick on it. And I'll see if I can do my data visualization and add brick. Let's create a new one. Using a function. What do we find? We found material, brick. What do we want to do to that? Let's apply the attributes. We'll make it. I'm limited to what I can do. I can make gradients, tiles, make it solid. And let's put a different texture on it. I wonder what that will do. I've not tried this before. So let's see what it does. No, it didn't color that wall. So let's go back to my edit. Let's give it no texture, but I'll give it a red color. I still didn't color it, so and it might be because the material is assigned to the component. I don't know. But it's not doing quite, oh, there it is. Okay, so it's coloring, it's not coloring the elevation, but it is coloring that component in plan view. Oh, that's interesting. So I'm just coloring up the different components by the material. It could be quite useful. But if I go back to my elevation, I'll see if I go to a side view. OpenGL doesn't show it. Final hidden line doesn't show it. So it only shows up for that type of thing. It only shows up in plan. So I'm sorry, I don't have a good one. Yeah, I could turn off the auto pen color, David. I just didn't. And so I think that's all the questions, Barbara. So I think it's probably time we wrapped up anyway. So yeah. Just remind everybody that, oh, where's it gone? That one. So I'll just remind everybody that I'm looking for that we're looking at data visualization. So on my website, I covered a whole lot of the data visualization options that we've got here, how we can do modified by record, how we can create data visualizations, how we can manage the data visualizations. And in case you didn't know, this knowledge base has got all my movies. Every month I run another webinar, but you do need to subscribe and it does cost you a little bit. The feedback from people is that it's well worthwhile. Barbara, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to show my screen and just wrap it up for everybody so they know where to come and get Vectorworks. Come to knowedge.com, call us if you need to. We're here to help you every day. with email sometimes into the night. Thanks again, Jonathan. This was awesome. What a great topic. And looking forward to more webinars with you. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Have a great rest of the day.